I'm really happy with the match today. I really had to dig deep. I know that Laura is such a fighter, so I'm happy with my patience.
The 21-year-old Filipina sensation is usually one of the most upbeat players on tour. But when she faced Laura Siegemund at the Miami Open, something snapped. What you need to do? Can you watch her time? Because many times she's delaying. Yeah, but she stopped the point. I was about to serve. And she turned around. The words were measured. The tone was controlled. But the frustration behind them was unmistakable. Eala had just called out one of the most controversial players in tennis, and in doing so, exposed a flaw in the WTA's rulebook that has been festering for years. The statistics told the story. Eala had taken more than 25 seconds between serves 57% of the time. Siegemund, a staggering 85%. The German veteran, known for her ability to unsettle opponents, had pushed the Filipina to her breaking point. And when Eala finally spoke up, her words sent shockwaves through the tennis world. But this was not just about one match. It was about a system that allows gamesmanship to flourish. It was about a rule that demands enforcement but offers no consistency. And it was about a young champion who refused to stay silent. The Miami Open clash between Eala and Laura Siegemund was supposed to be a routine match, a rising star against a veteran, a test of skill, not of patience. But within minutes, it became something else entirely, a case study in how the WTA's rules are failing its players. Eala had squandered an early lead in the first set, falling 6-7 behind against the German veteran. Siegemund, who at 38 years old had built a reputation as one of the tour's most effective practitioners of gamesmanship, was doing what she did best. Disrupting rhythm. Unsettling opponents. Winning without playing the game. The tactics were subtle but unmistakable. Turning away when Eala was about to serve. Retreating to the back of the court mid-service motion. Taking extra time between points. So much extra time that the numbers became impossible to ignore. The Tennis Channel broadcast displayed the statistic during the match. Eala had breached the 25-second shot clock limit on 57% of her service points. Siegemund, a staggering 85%. The German veteran was routinely flouting the rules and getting away with it. Midway through the second set, Eala mistossed a serve at 6-7, 2-1, 30-15. Siegemund turned around and retreated to the back of the court, then appeared to issue a complaint to the umpire. The umpire responded, "She's going to be spoken to. Talk to me." "She's going to be told. Same as you, she's going to be spoken." Eala had had enough. She approached the umpire's chair and delivered words that would echo through the tennis world. "What you need to do. Can you watch her time? Because many times she's delaying." "Yeah, but she stopped the point. I was about to serve and she turned around." The umpire tried to placate her. "The time has been watched and she knows. And you as well, you need to be careful of the clock." But Eala was not backing down. "I was about to serve," she repeated. "Yeah, but she stopped the point. I was about to serve and she turned around." Siegemund, overhearing the exchange, offered her own defense. "It's not about the time, it's about the focus." But Eala had already made her point. And the tennis world was listening. Eala's complaint was not just about one player. It was about a system that allows gamesmanship to flourish. A system where the rules are enforced inconsistently, where veterans exploit loopholes, and where the burden falls on the players to police themselves. The shot clock rule was introduced with good intentions, to speed up the game and prevent players from taking excessive time between points. But as Eala's match exposed, the rule is failing in its execution. The solution seems simple: enforce the rules consistently. If a player regularly exceeds the 25-second limit, they should be penalized. But that is not happening. Siegemund had been a repeat offender for years. Coco Gauff had complained about her conduct at the 2023 U.S. Open long before Eala's Miami match. An analysis of the issue noted that those responsible for enforcing the rules need to apply some discretion. It's not just about strict timing, it's about understanding the flow of the game and respecting what players go through on court. But discretion without consistency is no solution at all. If one umpire ignores violations while another enforces them strictly, the players are left guessing. And players like Siegemund know exactly how to exploit the uncertainty. Eala's complaint was not born of entitlement. It was born of frustration. The frustration of a young player who was doing everything right and watching her opponent bend the rules with impunity. "I was about to serve," Eala told the umpire, her voice carrying the weight of a player who had reached her limit. Yeah, but she stopped the point. I was about to serve and she turned around. She said, I was about to serve at least 3 times during the exchange. The repetition was telling. She was not just arguing a point. She was pleading for fairness. The statistics from the Tennis Channel broadcast were damning. Eala had exceeded the 25-second shot clock limit on 57% of her service points. Siegemund a staggering 85%. The German veteran was routinely flouting the rules and getting away with it. But Eala's complaint was not just about one match. It was about a system that allows gamesmanship to flourish. A system where veterans exploit loopholes, where the rules are enforced inconsistently, and where the burden falls on the players to police themselves. The match itself was a marathon. Eala eventually prevailed 6-7, 6-3, 6-3 in a contest that lasted 3 hours and 20 minutes. But the victory came at a cost. The frustration she had felt on court was now being felt across the tennis world. What you need to do? Can you watch her time, because many times she's delaying, Eala had told the umpire in the second set. I was about to serve, and she turned around. Siegemund, overhearing the exchange, offered her own defense. It's not about the time, it's about the focus. But the focus had been disrupted long before Eala's complaint. Siegemund's tactics were subtle but unmistakable. She had arrived for her match against Argentina's Solana Sierra at Wimbledon 2025 5 minutes late, leaving her 21-year-old opponent to stand around awkwardly and wait. She changed rackets frequently, even during games, disrupting her opponent's rhythm. She paused in her service motion, used extended towel breaks, and employed every trick in the book to throw off her opponents. I don't necessarily like or seek to make trouble. That's not my goal, Siegemund had said in a news conference. I know that I have some very controversial habits. I don't try to disturb anyone, although that might be interpreted like that. I have my weird stuff going on. I've been doing it all my life. I was always slow, talking about time violations and stuff. That's nothing that just got invented now. I'm pretty consistent with my weirdness that I have. The consistency was the point. Siegemund's tactics were not accidental, they were deliberate, and they were effective. In a 2023 U.S. Open match against Coco Gauff, the German had drawn the wrath of the home crowd for her slow play. In one sequence in the third set, Gauff appeared to hit an ace on a first serve, but Siegemund threw up her hands, saying that she wasn't ready. Gauff was forced to serve again and voiced her displeasure over that decision to the umpire. The umpire later gave Siegemund a point penalty for persistently taking too long between points. She was going over the time since the first set, and I never said anything, Gauff said after that match. Obviously, the crowd started to notice that she was taking long. The pattern was unmistakable. Siegemund had been exploiting the gray areas of the rulebook for years, and the WTA had done nothing to stop her. But Eala was not alone in her frustration. The shot clock rule had been a source of controversy for years, with players across both tours calling for reform. Carlos Alcaraz had called the system crazy and argued that it can feel unfair. Taylor Fritz had said officials should apply more common sense when players need time to walk back to the baseline. Daniil Medvedev had argued that some umpires, particularly Fergus Murphy, started the clock too fast, leading to unfair time violations. I always had a problem, particularly with Fergus, Fritz said. He would start the clock so fast. I play very quickly, and I was getting time violations called on me from him, but only from him, so I complained about that a lot. The inconsistency was the problem. Some umpires were strict, others were flexible, and players like Siegemund knew exactly how to exploit the uncertainty. Now, Eala had joined the chorus of voices demanding change. Her complaint was not just about one match. It was about a system that allowed gamesmanship to flourish, a system that gave veterans an unfair advantage, a system that the WTA had refused to address. The solution seemed simple: enforce the rules consistently. If a player regularly exceeds the 25-second limit, penalize them. If an umpire is known for strict enforcement, hold them accountable. And if a player like Siegemund is a repeat offender, address the issue directly. But as Alcaraz had noted, nothing changes. I don't want to waste my time because I've already been through other situations where you complain or give your opinion and nothing changes, he said. Eala was about to discover whether her complaint would be any different. Eala was about to discover whether her complaint would be any different. But as the tennis world watched, the uncomfortable truth became clear. The German veteran had been operating with impunity for years, and the WTA had done nothing to stop her. The data from the Miami Open broadcast was damning. Siegemund had exceeded the 25-second shot clock limit on 85% of her service points. Eala's 57% was also over the limit, but the disparity was impossible to ignore. The German veteran was routinely flouting the rules, and the umpire had done nothing to enforce them until Eala finally spoke up. The pattern of unpunished violations extended far beyond that single match. At the 2023 U.S. Open, Coco Gauff had been driven to frustration by the exact same tactics. She went over the clock about 4 times. You've given her a time violation once. How is this fair? Gauff had asked the umpire during her first-round match against Siegemund. The German's response to that complaint revealed her mindset. I was just slow. That's something in the rule. I get my time violation, and that's fine, she had said after the match. But the fines and penalties she received were never enough to change her behavior. At Wimbledon 2025, Siegemund had arrived 5 minutes late for her 4th-round match against Solana Sierra, leaving the 21-year-old lucky loser to stand around awkwardly and wait. In that same match, she had changed rackets frequently, even during games, and paused in her service motion for several seconds each time, all calculated to disrupt her opponent's rhythm. Naomi Osaka had identified the pattern years earlier. I think part of her game is to find out how to irritate the other person a little bit, she said of Siegemund in 2018. The observation had proven prescient. Over the years, the German had accumulated a reputation as one of the sport's most successful practitioners of gamesmanship. At the Australian Open 2025, Siegemund had used her tactics to upset Zheng Qinwen, the number 5 seed and 2024 finalist. On that occasion, Zheng received a second time violation while serving at a critical moment, resulting in a penalty point that gave Siegemund the decisive break. The pattern was consistent. Siegemund pushed the boundaries. Her opponents paid the price. The frustration from Eala's Miami match had resonated far beyond that single court. The tennis world was asking the same question. How many more players had to suffer before the WTA took meaningful action? The rules existed. The enforcement did not. Eala's complaint was not just about one match. It was about a system that allowed gamesmanship to flourish. A system where veterans exploited loopholes. A system where the burden fell on the players to police themselves. And a system that was failing the very athletes it was designed to protect. The Miami Open had been a platform for Eala's rise. It was where she had announced herself to the world with her stunning semifinal run in 2025, defeating 3 Grand Slam champions along the way. But the 2026 edition had revealed something else about her. A willingness to speak up, to fight for fairness, and to challenge a system that had allowed injustice to fester for too long. The Miami Open had been a platform for Eala's rise. It was where she had announced herself to the world with her stunning semifinal run in 2025, defeating 3 Grand Slam champions along the way. But the 2026 edition had revealed something else about her. A willingness to speak up, to fight for fairness, and to challenge a system that had allowed injustice to fester for too long. Within hours of the match, the footage of Eala's complaint had gone viral. Tennis fans across the globe shared the clip, many of them expressing relief that someone had finally called out the behavior that had been tolerated for years. The response was overwhelming, not just from fans, but from fellow players who had experienced similar frustrations. Coco Gauff, who had been vocal about Siegemund's tactics in the past, was asked about the incident in her post-match press conference. Her response was measured but pointed. I think Alex handled it really well. She didn't lose her composure. She just stated the facts and let the umpire do his job. That's exactly how you're supposed to handle it. The message was clear. Eala had done everything right. She had not lost her temper. She had not made it personal. She had simply asked for fairness. But the conversation quickly expanded beyond Siegemund. Tennis insiders began to question whether the WTA's enforcement mechanisms were fundamentally broken. The shot clock rule had been introduced with good intentions, but its application had become inconsistent at best. Players were being penalized for exceeding the limit, but veterans like Siegemund were repeatedly exceeding it without consequence. Eala's complaint had exposed something deeper. A system that allowed gamesmanship to flourish. A system where the rules were enforced only when the umpire chose to enforce them. A system where the burden of policing fell on the players themselves. This is not about one player, Eala said in a press conference following her Miami exit, refusing to criticize Siegemund directly but making her position clear. I think there's a lot more nuance to it than just slowing down the pace. There's a lot of things in tennis that players do to try to get an edge, and that's just the reality. Is it fair? I don't know. Is it against the rules? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's up to the umpires to regulate. Her words were measured, but they carried weight. She had just achieved one of the biggest wins of her career, winning the longest match of the tournament so far in nearly 3.5 hours. She could have focused on the victory. Instead, she had chosen to speak up about something that mattered more than any single match. The Miami Open would be remembered for many things: the stunning performances, the packed stadiums, the electrifying atmosphere, but for Eala, it would also be remembered as the moment she found her voice. The moment she decided that silence was no longer an option. Her complaint had not been about anger. It had been about fairness. It had been about a young player who refused to accept a system that allowed veterans to bend the rules with impunity. And in doing so, she had joined the ranks of players like Coco Gauff, like Naomi Osaka, like the countless others who had spoken out before her. The tennis world was still processing the implications. But one thing was certain: Alex Eala had proven that she was not just a champion on the court. She was a champion for the sport itself. As she prepared for the hard court swing, she carried with her the lesson of Miami. Not just the victory over Siegemund, but the knowledge that her voice mattered. That speaking up could make a difference. That the sport she loved was worth fighting for. And as the US Open approached, the tennis world would be watching to see what she would say next.